everyone. Welcome. My name is Samantha Shokin. I'm project manager for EU-funded grants at the ESJF European Jewish Cemeteries Initiative. I want to thank you all for joining us for today's online symposium, Mapping and Protecting Moldova's Jewish Cemeteries, which we are honored to present during International Holocaust Remembrance Week, together with our friends, the Jewish community of the Republic of Moldova. My special thanks to Julia Scheinman for helping us organize this event. Today, we will present findings from the ESJF Country Report on Moldova, which summarizes the results of our EU-funded pilot project, which ran between December 2018 and June 2020. The aim of the project was to map and survey 1,500 Jewish cemetery sites across 5 European countries: Slovakia, Lithuania, Ukraine, Greece, and Moldova. Prior to this work, there had been no comprehensive list of Jewish cemeteries in Moldova. However, with the cooperation of the Jewish community of Moldova and the Moldovan Ministry of Culture, ESJF was able to compile the first full catalog of Jewish cemeteries in the country, which today is publicly accessible via ESJF's online database. We have expanded our work in surveying sites this year, again with the support of the European Commission, so that a further 1,500 sites are currently being surveyed and their data analyzed in Poland, Ukraine, Slovakia, Hungary, Croatia, Lithuania, and Georgia. Surveying, performed using groundbreaking drone technology, fulfills two critical roles in the preservation of these sites. Firstly, it establishes for the record the presence of a Jewish burial site and provides an initial holding operation to protect the site by transferring this key information to Jewish communities and state and local actors. It also enables us to already prepare the 3D models of fencing design, which we hope will ultimately lead to long-term physical protection. Surveying is therefore an integral part of the ESJF, one which has already constructed some 200 fencing projects across 8 countries in Central and Eastern Europe since 2015 through funding provided by the Federal Republic of Germany, including, of course, here in Moldova. These surveyed sites remain a repository, enabling us to look forward this year to continuing our physical protection work in the country. In addition to mapping and surveying Jewish cemetery sites, ESJF sought to raise awareness of their value and vulnerability among local stakeholders and conduct educational events for high school students and teachers. These events, which ranged from teacher trainings and classroom lectures to hands-on fieldwork, were made possible with support from the Moldovan Ministry of Education. We are grateful to our partners in the community for being so open to this project and helping to facilitate our vital work on the ground. In cataloging Moldova's Jewish cemetery sites, ESJF has not only verified their existence, but also highlighted their vulnerability, with many found to be demolished or at risk. With these findings, we can now explore the best avenues for protection, incorporating physical fencing measures, education programs, and emphasis on local authority action. In advocating for the protection of Jewish cemeteries, we emphasize their significance not only to Jewish communities, but as sites of shared heritage among diverse local populations. Moldova's Jewish cemeteries contribute to the multicultural fabric of the country and make up a part of our shared European heritage. As such, it is our mutual responsibility to protect the sanctity of those buried at these sites and the memory of Jewish life in Eastern Europe prior to the Holocaust. We have numerous esteemed speakers joining us today. The first is ESJF Chairman Rabbi Isaac Shapira, whose vision and initiative has done so much for the protection of Jewish cemeteries in Europe. Before I open the floor to Rabbi Shapira, I would like to inform our audience that today's program is being recorded and will be uploaded to the ESJF website in the coming weeks. We also have simultaneous language interpretation available between English, Russian, and Romanian. To enable the interpretation, click on the globe at the bottom of the Zoom window and select your preferred language. Finally, we will have time for a brief Q&A session following the presentation of the country report by ESJF lead historian, Dr. Katya Malachova. To participate, please submit your questions into the chat box. Thank you. And now please join me in welcoming ESJF Chairman, Rabbi Isaac Shapira.
Hello, everybody, distinguished guest, Chief Rabbi, all my colleagues at the ESJF and friends and guests This is an historic moment for all of us today. We are now 76 years after the terrible Holocaust. And here we are sitting, having completed such a marvelous and magnificent, significant and impressive mission of knowing where all the Jewish cemeteries in Moldova are. This is such an historic moment. I brought this to the attention of the President of the State of Israel, who was interested to participate in this event today, but given his previous commitments, he was due to be in Paris today. Yesterday was the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, and he was meant to be with President Steinmeier and President Macron. So in substitution of a personal address, he deposited with me a letter and he asked me to read it to you, which I'm doing with great respect and pride. I will read you the letter. To participants in the webinar of the ESJF, the European Jewish Cemeteries Initiative, and the Jewish community in Moldova. Dear friends, as you gather together for the virtual meeting of the ESJF, founded and headed by Rabbi Isaac Shapira, OBE, to hear reports on their surveys of Jewish cemeteries in the countries of Europe, currently focusing on Moldova, I want to send to you my warm greetings from Jerusalem. The very welcome activities of the ESJF to identify and preserve the final resting places of Jews who lived, worked, and produced so much of the rich written Jewish culture over many centuries in Europe is indeed most important than ever. Tragically, along with the slaughter of 6 million of our brothers and sisters during the Holocaust in Europe, centuries of the Jewish presence in the countries of Europe were erased. The efforts of the ESJF are making a most valuable contribution to identifying and preserving some of that rich history and returning to those past generations some dignity and remembrance. The support and involvement of the European Union and of the representatives of the country's government is very welcome, helping to ensure that the important efforts of the ESJF surveys can continue with full recognition. I send my sincere appreciation and commendation to the ESJF for all their efforts. With blessings from Jerusalem, sincerely, Reuven Ruvi Rivlin. Gentlemen, allow me to add my own few words. Firstly, I would like really to bless, appreciate, and speak words of admiration for the entire team headed by Philip Carmel at the ESJF for the wonderful work which we are carrying out in both departments, in the Department of Preservation and protecting, saving cemeteries, and returning to them their dignity they so much deserve, and also the Department for locating and tracing the cemeteries in so many countries. I am indebted both to the German Federal Republic for their financial support in the saving and preservation of cemeteries, which help us to really save cemeteries often from destruction after so many were destroyed already. And I'm absolutely indebted to the European Union for what they are doing with us financially in helping us carrying out this fantastic job of finding the cemeteries which otherwise maybe we would have not even known of their existence. Our organization is carrying out a terrific and historic job of finding all these places. So thank you for everybody who is involved in here, ESJF, the EU, the Jewish community in Moldova, everybody in Moldova, and you should all be blessed. It's today a very important and symbolic Jewish kind of a holiday. Yesterday it was the International Remembrance of the Holocaust. Let us all be blessed with strength to continue with our historical and important functions, which hopefully will be we will be able to accomplish them sooner rather than later. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Shapira, for your very important words. I'd like to welcome our next speaker, Mr. Alexander Belinkis, the chairman of the Jewish community of Moldova. Mr. Belinkis, are you with us?
Я хочу приветствовать всех участников этой конференции. В этом году мы сделали большую работу. У меня не очень хорошая связь здесь, поэтому более подробно об этой работе расскажет Юлия Шейман. Я хочу сказать, что то, что происходит, то, что делает ESJF, что этот проект, он очень важен. Важен для еврейской общины Молдовы и важен для всего гражданского общества, потому что это большая часть истории, и это эти могилы, эти кладбища, это памятники не только наших предков, но и большого времени, которое происходило. И работа, которую проделывает община совместно с фондом, она очень и очень важна. То, что мы сделали уже, то, что мы собираемся сделать, это большие проекты, которые мы самостоятельно, как община, безусловно, не потянем, и поэтому и помощь фонда, которая и материальная, и дидактическая, и организационно очень важна. В этом году мы, к сожалению, из-за пандемии много проектов приостановили, но вот то, что сделали, еврейская община сделала самостоятельно, обнесла заборами кладбище в городе Бессарабка. Практически мы уже закончили этот проект. Я думаю, что где-то в марте месяце мы его откроем, покажем, представим. Ну, более подробно о наших планах и до следующий год. И я думаю, что расскажет Юлия Шейман. Хочу поблагодарить всех участников конференции. Желаю, чтобы она прошла успешно и плодотворно. Спасибо большое.
Спасибо вам большое. Thank you very much, Mr. Belinkis. I know Yulia will also be speaking, and it's a little bit different from the agenda that I had initially put on screen. So Yulia, you will speak after this next speaker. I would like to welcome our next speaker, Dr. Katya Malachova, who is ESJF's Director of Historical Research. Dr. Malachova will be presenting the ESJF National Report on the Jewish Cemeteries of Moldova. And after her presentation is over, we will allow time for a brief audience Q&A session. If you would like to participate and ask a question, we ask that you please submit your questions into the chat box. Thank you very much. And now please welcome Dr. Malachova.
Thank you, Samantha. Dear colleagues, dear friends, let me greet you here at our meeting. Let me greet all people who are interested in the history and preservation of Jewish cemeteries, for we are doing a very important work. I will present the main results of the surveys which were done during last and this year in the framework of EU grant project. I'll now try to share my screen. Just give me a moment. Oop. Yeah, can you see my screen? Samantha, is it okay? Very good.
Yes.
Okay, so let's start. Oh, sorry. Oh. Sorry, I have some technical problems with that. Okay, let's do so. So as you understand, The work starts not in the field. The work starts in office with preparation of the cemetery lists. As Samantha mentioned already, there is no national state register of Jewish cemeteries in Moldova. The same situation we have in other countries like Ukraine. Now we try to improve the situation, and our first task was to prepare the list of the Jewish cemeteries known in Moldova as full as it possible. So of course, we based on the work which was previously done. And our first source was US Commission of Preservation of Jewish Heritage Abroad report made in 2010, which was already mentioned in our chat by Ms. Ruth Gruber just a couple of minutes ago. We started from that, and this report contains 37 cemeteries mentioned in Moldova. The second big attempt to describe all the Jewish cemeteries in Moldova was done by Jewish Gen group, by Jewish Gen Bessarabia Special Interest Group under the chief of the project was Yefim Kogan, and lots of Moldovan historians, including Irina Shekhova, helped to that project. So in the framework of this project, 65 Jewish cemeteries in Moldova were mentioned, and the reports were published on 48 sites. So only 48 sites were surveyed, described, and the results was published. We understood that these lists are not full. That's why our next task was to add the sites which could, sorry, is it okay? Can you see my screen?
I think you exited the Prezi. There it is.
Sorry, just a moment. Let's try again. Yeah. So yeah, we understood that we should search for the sites which were not included in the previous lists. So how did we do that? We worked with different historical sources, historical maps, Yescore books, memorial books on these Jewish titles, other historical records research. And a part of that, we decided that we will check all the settlements with considerable Jewish population, which we consider on the level of peak Jewish population more than 100 people, which means that this community could have established a cemetery. And we visited all the sites, and in some cases, we managed to find the cemetery. Just a moment. Okay, there are again some technical problems, but we'll do without that. Okay, that is a good example. Ataki, well-known site on the bank of Dniester. So you can see the map from the Yescore book showing 2 Jewish cemeteries in Ataki. One is well-known, situated in the suburb of Velchinets, but the second, basically the first, the old one, was marked only on this map drawn by memory, so it is not so exact. And we tried to compare the site with a modern Google map, and we established the approximate location of the cemetery. So the cemetery is a good example of what we add to the lists. The surveys were held basically at the beginning of 2019. In total, 132 towns and villages were in Moldova, including Transnistria, were visited. I stress again that these are not the towns with known Jewish cemeteries, but also towns with a considerable Jewish population. We tried to search if the cemeteries existed, or we can throw the sites out of our list. 72 cemetery sites were located, including 15 in Transnistria. 70 of them were categorized, surveyed, and incorporated into the database. 2 Jewish cemeteries. We could not visit the site itself. One of them is Kabasna, which is located on the territory of military base, and access is forbidden. The second one, is Gershunovka, Jewish agricultural colony. We know approximately the location, but it is severely overgrown. It is in the middle of the wood, and we just did not manage to get there. That's why we operate with the numbers of 70 Jewish cemeteries. what are our sites which were not on the previous lists? Here you can see the list. Not all these sites were unknown. Part of them were mentioned by different historians, including all Jewish cemeteries in Chisinau, but they were not included into the lists of the Jewish cemeteries, mostly because previous attempts were not focused on demolished cemeteries. As they were not considered as historical monument, they were not included in the most databases. You can see that of 19 sites which were included to the previous list by us, 15 were demolished and 4 preserved. And this stress our the difference of our project with other ones, that we consider that for Jewish tradition, the Jewish cemetery without tombstones, but still with probably preserved burials, are still Jewish cemetery. And it is very important. And from the point of view of historian, the location of demolished and overbuilt Jewish cemetery also tells us a lot about the history of Jewish community. That's why we focused on demolished Jewish cemeteries, and we managed to find, locate, and survey some sites which were not surveyed before. This is an example, Pyrlitsa, a site with a big Jewish population. A historical map of Russian army of 1941 shows clearly the Jewish cemetery. Here it is, with a special mark of Jewish cemetery. We locate the site on the modern map, and this is a photo of what is going on there now. It is overbuilt. One more example, Ungene. There were 3 Jewish cemeteries in Ungene. 2 of them are demolished and overbuilt. This is an oldest one. And again, it was shown on the same Soviet war map. By mistake, it was marked as a Christian, but we know that it was Jewish. And it is also overbuilt. The survey includes visiting and locating the cemetery, photographing and dating of the site, which means dating, reading and dating of the tombstones, basic description of the site, which is published on our website, delineating and mapping the exact perimeter, which is important if we are speaking about future preservation and probably fencing projects, drone survey, photos from above, and 3D models created. Just some photos to get an idea. This is Dr. Irina Shikhova, who was a participant of our project, reading the tombstone. An example of a drone photo from above, which shows clearly the borders of the cemetery. You can see it very good from drone photos. That's a new cemetery in Reshkane. And 3D model, which allows to create a project of fencing. This is the case for Vadul-Rashka, which is unfenced until now, but now after that work, we can start arranging this fencing project. Well, main results. Speaking about preservation of Jewish cemeteries, you can see the map. There are 53 Jewish cemeteries preserved, which means they contain at least 1 tombstone in situ. That was our criteria. If we find even 1 Jewish tombstone preserved in situ, we consider the cemetery as preserved. And such cemeteries are 76% of total known Jewish cemeteries in Moldova, which is pretty high, which is more than in Ukraine, and which shows that the Jewish heritage of Moldova should be preserved and should be protected further. We found 17 demolished cemeteries, 24%, among which 13 cemeteries, 19%, are overbuilt, which means totally lost, and 4 cemeteries non-overbuilt, which means that the burials could be preserved. Speaking about protection, unfenced Jewish cemeteries are 25% of all known today Jewish cemeteries. These sites are requiring urgent protection. 29 cemeteries are protected, and have fencing. 6 cemeteries are Jewish section within municipal cemeteries, which means that they have protection inside the municipal cemetery. Basically, they have a common fencing with the municipal cemetery, which means that they are protected by local authorities. 4 are demolished Jewish cemeteries, 6%, and 19%, 13 cemeteries are lost, demolished, and overbuilt, which means that 35 cemeteries, half, 50%, are protected and fenced, either by their own fencing or inside the municipal cemetery. 22 cemeteries, 30%, require protection and fencing, including preserved unfenced Jewish cemeteries and also Jewish cemeteries which were demolished but were not overbuilt with preserved burials, and 19% are totally lost. Here are some examples of cemeteries which require urgent protection. Rezina Old Jewish Cemetery, totally abandoned and overgrown. Markuleshte Jewish Cemetery is the same. Rishkani New Jewish Cemetery, in a comparatively good condition, but still unfenced and still in danger. ESJF also conducts the fencing projects. We had 5 fencing projects in Moldova. We started with Bricheva yet before the EU grant in 17, but at the same time with conducting the survey project, 4 fences were built: Kaprieshti, Varzareshti, Hincheshti, and Zgurica. Here are some photos of the first fencing in Bricheva, the site which was protected by ESJF in 2017. Here is a photo from above in Bricheva. We hope that we will consider more projects of fencing. Speaking about analysis of this data, an important point is the role of Jewish communities and Jewish population in preservation and protecting of Jewish cemeteries in Moldova. Among the 53 preserved cemeteries, the cemeteries which are still in use today, which means in settlements which have active Jewish population, are 21. And among these 21, 86% are preserved, protected and fenced. Most of them are protected and fenced. The cemeteries that were used after World War II, but not in the last 15 years, which means the settlement had the Jewish community in after war times, but the community disappeared in later years. 21 cemeteries, 67 of them are protected and fenced, which most probably is connected with the activity of former Jewish community. And the cemeteries that were not used after World War II, we're speaking about villages and settlements with the disappeared Jewish community during the Holocaust. There are 8, and most of them are abandoned and do not have any fencing, are in danger, which means that Jewish communities, Jewish local population still plays the crucial role in protecting of Jewish cemeteries in Moldova. Well, and now some interesting discoveries made during the project. For example, the site called Anitskane, which was previously unlisted. The field team has found 4 broken tombstones dating from the early 18th century, which is pretty old for Moldova, 1733, 1740. At the demolished site of Jewish cemetery in Anitskane, the site is demolished and there is a private vegetable garden on the site. But near the fence of vegetable garden, we have found 4 tombstones, you can see that. And as there is absolutely no information about Anitskane Jewish history in 80s. Yes, I can see the question. Maybe after, okay, thank you. So this is one discovery. One more is cemetery found near the village of Cebulovka, also previously unlisted, open ground, unfenced, in danger. You can see the photos which clearly show the matzevot with the names and dates, broken matzevot, Цибульовka is an interesting case of Jewish cemetery which was not clear to which community it belonged, because Цибульовка does not have the Jewish community and never had. But comparing the old and modern maps, we can see that near the site there was a shtetl of town of Yagarlik, which was flooded in 1950s while building the reservoir on the river. And you can see here the modern map with this region of former town flooded. And most probably this preserved Jewish cemetery belonged to the community of Yagarlik. We know that Yagarlik had the Jewish population and had synagogue. And one more case, maybe the last one, Kremenchuk Jewish Agricultural Settlement Cemetery. As you know, in southern Russian Empire regions, including Moldova, there were Jewish agricultural colonies and settlements created in order to give the Jews the right to work on the to maintain the agricultural works. So Kremenchuk is one of examples of the settlements with a high rate of Jewish population involved in agricultural activity. Actually, in Kremenchuk, they grew tobacco at the beginning of the 20th century. So that is the cemetery of Kremenchuk, Kremenchuk village, again previously unlisted, abandoned, and unfenced. These are only few examples of the findings which were done, and I will finish by now, but I encourage you to ask questions. Maybe I can tell something more interesting for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katya. We have a question that came in by email from Yvette Mersbacher in Sweden. She would like to know what motivated ESJF to survey Moldova in particular.
Sorry, once again?
The question is, what motivated ESJF to survey Moldova in particular?
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, Ms. Mersbacher is from Switzerland, not Sweden.
Thank you very much for the question. Moldova is among the regions where this work was not done before. If we compare the situation in regions like Moldova, Ukraine, and Belarus with the situation with the countries like Hungary, Poland, and Lithuania, we can see these regions are almost not surveyed until now. And that's why Moldova was included in the countries which need to be surveyed first, because lots of Jewish cemeteries preserved, as you can see. They require urgent protection. This heritage is very rich, and we need to protect it as soon as possible until it will disappear. Thank you.
Thank you, Katya. And I think Phil actually wants to add something to that. So Phil, unmute yourself. Feel free to.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Our history in Moldova is actually twofold. Firstly, as an organization which initially fenced cemeteries, or just fenced the cemeteries before the survey work began, we started work already in Ukraine and Belarus, in the Czech Republic, in Serbia, and other places. And we were approached, in fact, by Yvette to start with some work in Moldova. We'd already considered this, but we were able, through the initiative of Yvette, to send in rabbinical surveyors into many places into northern Moldova. And we were able to fund, with the support of other organizations, but principally with the support of the German government, an initial fencing project in Bricheva, which you saw in that presentation from Katya. What I would say is that the situation with regard to the European Union grant stipulates that while some countries which should be surveyed under that grant should be European Union members, other ones should be neighborhood countries like Moldova and like Ukraine. we had already surveyed Belarus, so it was natural that both Ukraine and Moldova would be the initial countries which would be included in this project. In fact, this year, having already achieved most of those former Soviet Union countries, we've actually pushed even further out into Georgia. So that's the real basis behind why we've been working on surveys in Moldova. And of course, like Ukraine and like Belarus, the absence of lists has made it extremely urgent to survey the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. We have actually a question from Rabbi Shapira, or perhaps something he would like for us to clarify. Katya, could you please tell us who preserved the cemeteries that were already fenced, and are these possibly pre-war preservations?
Thank you, Rabbi Shapira, for the question. Speaking about cemeteries which are already fenced, we have both pre-war fencing, which are mainly old masonry walls. The example is, for example, like Rashkov, which in pre-war times was surrounded with a huge masonry wall, which is half destroyed now, but still shows the clear borders of the sites. So we have pre-war fencing, and we also have some examples of fencing built by Jewish communities in after-war times. And this fencing is also now mostly in a poor condition, but still it shows the activity of Jewish communities after the war. And also there are some amount of private initiatives. The example is Skuliana Jewish Cemetery, which was fenced by a private donor and focused on important Hasidic burial site there. So it turned to be a pilgrimage site. So this site was fenced by a private donor. So there are different cases.
Thank you very much. This next question comes from Tatiana, and I will translate it. Can we be certain that this list contains all the existing cemeteries in Moldova?
Yes. Well, no. The correct answer is no, because this work never stops. We always get new information from the local activists, from the newly found documents, and we continue to search and to find the new sites. And my small secret is that I have the list of the sites which I expect to be found, but which were not found until now. For example, site named Kriuliane, with 300 Jews at the peak, and some evidence that Jewish cemeteries existed and was demolished while building the bridge nearby, but we did not manage to establish the exact location of the site. Karneshte, some more Jewish agricultural settlements, which are not studied until now. So we hope that the work will go on, and the list will be added with more sites which will be found in the future.
Thank you. We have time for just, I think, 3 more questions. This next one comes from Adelina. Can you please tell us, why did these cemeteries interest you for this research? How does it matter for the study of history, and what is its importance?
Thank you for the question. This is a main question for me. Jewish cemetery is a unique source of information about Jewish history of the site. As you know, after the Holocaust, in most of Jewish communities, the Jewish population ceased to exist. And in a lot of Jewish communities, there are not so many historical records about the existed Jewish community. So there are sites where the Jewish cemetery is basically the only historical source about the Jewish community. And as Jewish tombstone usually contains the name and the date of the death, we can try to date the existence of Jewish community at the site. We have strong evidence that the Jewish community existed. We get some information about people who lived in this community, their names. We have some information about probably their professions in some cases. So it is a unique source, a unique historical source. And we hope that the sites which were found by us will be studied in the future, will be catalogized, the tombstones will be deciphered, and we will get this information. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. This next question is from Oksana.
Mhm.
Does drone surveying help us find cemeteries and determine their boundaries?
Again, very good question. You can think that the drone survey is needed only for creating the beautiful 3D model of the site. But the truth is that the site from above can show the features of the land which are not seen from the ground. For example, as you know, the Jewish cemetery traditionally are delineated with the ditches. In some cases, you cannot see this ditch from the ground standing on it. But from above, you can see very clearly the smallest details of relief. And by that way, you can delineate the territory of Jewish cemetery much more clearly than without this sight from above, the drone survey. That's why it is important not only for 3D modeling, but also for historical work.
Thank you, Katya. This next question is actually a question for Phil, and it comes from Michael Mail. Will you be fencing in all of the unfenced cemetery sites?
Well, the truth is that the ESJF would like to reach a situation where it can fence all the cemeteries which need to be fenced in Central Europe. That amounts to, we presume, about 3,500 sites. So, as the phrase goes, it is our job to take on that project, but it is not our job but to finish it. We have so far fenced 200 sites. The main objective with these surveys at the moment is to create fencing models for every site which requires fencing. That's the first stage, and we are continuing work in Moldova, and I would certainly hope that we would be able to generate the resources over the coming years to make sure that all fences are protected in Moldova, as indeed they should be in all countries in which we work. But obviously the work is great, the resources are limited, and we try to fence according to urgency where possible, and with the support, obviously, of the local authorities and the Jewish communities.
Thank you, Phil. We have a lot of questions coming in and limited time, so I'm going to take just two more. Rabbi Shapira would like for us to clarify if 70 cemeteries are considered reasonable for such a densely and highly populated region.
Thank you, Rabbi Shapira. Well, the density of Jewish population and Jewish cemeteries in Moldova is comparable to the density of Jewish population and Jewish cemeteries in Odessa region, which is adjacent to modern Moldova borders and is the same historical region of Bessarabia. And the density is more or less the same. It is less than in highly populated Podolia, which is to the north from the Moldova. It is less, right? And probably it shows that in some regions of northern Moldova, the amount of Jewish communities and Jewish cemeteries could be higher if the information, in case the information would have preserved. So as I told, the list is not absolutely full, and there is a chance that we missed some sites which will make this density higher. But basically it is comparable to Odessa, and I don't think that we should expect much more Jewish, much more towns and villages with the Jewish communities at that site. Thank you.
Thank you, Katya. And final question comes from Paul. How can information on the sites, on the cemetery sites, be visible to the public, and how does that look on preserved sites in Moldova?
So we have the site on which all our information is published. The site is now under reconstruction, and we hope that very soon it will look better than it is now, with a more convenient search options and all that. But still, you can search our website and find there an information.
Wonderful. Thank you, Katya. I wish we could take more questions, but there are just too many coming in and we have to move on. So thank you once again for that wonderful presentation. I would like to introduce our next speaker, Yulia Scheinman, the president of the Jewish community of Moldova. Yulia, are you with us and ready to speak?
Здравствуйте всем. Спасибо, что предоставили мне слово. Действительно, я хочу сказать от лица общины Республики Молдова, что мы реализовали совместно с фондом за период 2018-2020 год важный для нас всех проект по сохранению еврейского наследия в Бессарабии, именно по защите и каталогизации еврейских кладбищ. Можно сказать, что мы его начали благодаря фонду ESJF. В ходе исследования действительно из 132 предполагаемых кладбищ было обнаружено, изучено и картографировано 70 сохраненных. Все они являются важными носителями информации, отражают ту или иную историческую страницу еврейской Бессарабии. Конечно, находятся в разном состоянии, они либо не ограждены, как было сказано выше, либо заросшие, и это результат уничтожения их как во время Холокоста, так и в наши времена уже сейчас. Столетия еврейских поселений стерлись из памяти, как и артефакты, свидетельствующие об этом происхождении. Но вместе с тем мы еще имеем возможность сохранить это важные историко-культурные объекты для нашей страны и вообще для всех людей. Безусловно, такие проекты, которые находятся у нас в разработке, мы надеемся, что они будут сделаны в 2021 году. Это как кладбище Вадл-Рашков, на котором около 5000 захоронений, и датируется периодом с 17 по 20 век. Говорится, что все раввины знаменитого Рашковского хасидского двора, кроме одного, были захоронены на этом кладбище. Оно представляет собой место и паломничества, и место туристических маршрутов, и вообще объект большой культурной ценности. Это и кладбище в Аргееве, дата которого основания не установлена точно, но можно предположить, что это начало 17 века. И если учесть тот факт, что в Аргееве в 1613 году был еврейский погром, тогда кладбищу не менее 400 лет. Вот. И многие другие кладбища, такие как Калараш, Бессарабяска, Александренный и другие важные объекты. Конечно, уникальное еврейское кладбище Кишинева. На данный момент это единственное кладбище из всех в Молдове, включенное в реестр памятников, охраняемых государством. И это очень важный вопрос, который мы неоднократно поднимаем как еврейская община, что у кладбищ нет статуса. Нет статуса неохраняемых как памятников, то есть и нет статуса исторических объектов. Более того, чтобы этот статус был получен кладбищами, надо собрать довольно-таки, сделать дополнительные исследования, подать документы, и все это как бы требует время, силы. Мы надеемся, что государственные органы поддержат нас в этом. Мы писали неоднократно и давали исторические справки, давали документы, которые предоставил фонд европейский нам, давали картографию этого, но помимо всего там есть еще много-много аспектов, чтобы их включили. Вот я думаю, что хотя бы основные кладбища, которые известны, что они носят большую ценность, их, конечно, надо установить их статус и охранять государством. То, что касается работ, которые ведутся с кладбищами, это очень важно. И важно, что Европейский фонд помогает нам спасти какие-то кладбища. Вот пример кладбища в Продонежках, которое было огорожено забором, и которое мы застали как часть поля уже. То есть вот не хочется, чтобы эти кладбища превращались в поля, пастбищи и в какие-то другие вещи такие. Вот. То, что касается кладбища Кишиневского, это отдельная история, которая тоже всем известна. И история такого не то что не бережного отношения, но, к сожалению, кладбище несколько раз было вандализировано, если можно так сказать, и к огромному сожалению был потеряны часть объектов, такие объекты, как сектор жертв Кишиневского погрома, который был разрушен в результате вырубки неправильной. И это тоже очень болезненно. Я не знаю, если это возможно восстановить и как это будет дальше проходить. Тоже с государственными структурами мы неоднократно писали и просили, чтобы особое внимание уделялось этому. Поэтому упустить или допустить, чтобы были стерты эти исторические объекты, эти страницы истории, которые действительно можно прочитать жизнь еврейской общины Бессарабии. Тут как бы через Мацевы, через то, что там было, недопустимо. Поэтому еще раз мы благодарны фонду, мы надеемся, что мы сделаем Ваду Рашков и Аргеевское кладбище в перспективе. Вот. Мы надеемся, что, может быть, при помощи исследовательской какой-то группы нам удастся составить каталог с мацевами с кишиневских кладбищ, с надгробий, и хотя бы перечислить по основным кладбищам, кто захоронен, где захоронен, о чем это говорит, хотя бы основные исторические такие важные моменты, чтобы это не было постфактумом, когда это будет там кем-то, не дай бог, разрушено или что-то еще произойдет. Вот, поэтому огромная благодарность Филиппу и всей его команде. Спасибо большое.
Спасибо. Thank you, Yulia. I would like to now welcome our next speaker, Dr. Virgilio Birladianu, Associate Professor of History at the Academy of Sciences of Moldova. Dr. Birladianu, are you with us?
Bună ziua tuturor, sunt Virgiliu Bărladeanu. Dacă mă auziți, aș vrea să zic că astăzi reprezint Institutul de Istorie, care susține inițiativele și proiectele de cercetare, conservare, protecție cimitirilor și cel proiecte care dezvăluie pagini din istoria și din destinul poporului evreiesc, comunităților evreiești care au populat Basarabia. Le considerăm la fel de importante, spunând faptul că este o realitate istorică că cimitirile umane au proprietatea să dispară și ele există atât cât există comunitățile memoriei. În acest sens este foarte important rolul și activitatea comunității evreiești actuale, organizațiilor obștești, proiectelor, organizațiilor internaționale care se implică în păstrarea acestei memorii. Din păcate, adesea și eu personal știu câteva cimitire de teritoriul municipiului Chișinău, care pe parcursul ultimilor 50-40 de ani au dispărut, pentru că așa este și evident este foarte important să ne implicăm, să păstrăm această memorie. Institutul de Istorie a venit în câteva rânduri cu inițiative pentru cercetarea, publicarea documentelor care se referă la istoria, la comunităților evreiești, la pagina tragică a Holocaustului. Din păcate, nu avem răspunsul venit de fiecare dată, dar continuăm să insistăm, pentru că considerăm aceste lucruri, aceste proiecte și aceste inițiative importante pentru edificarea unei culturi a memoriei, a unei societăți democratice, cu valorile care trebuie să o edifice în continuare, în care fiecare comunitate acestei societăți este importantă, este un patrimoniu, iar ceea ce se referă la istoria patrimoniului, la istoria comunității evreiești, noi o considerăm ca o bogăție, ca un lucru care trebuie păstrat, ca un element acestei diversități care caracterizează orice societate democratică. Vă mulțumesc!
Thank you very much, Dr. Biladianu. And now I would like to please welcome our next speaker, Ms. Olga Benarovica from the EU delegation to Moldova.
Yes, dear Samantha, I'm fine with the sound? Okay.
Yes, everything's great.
Yes, dear Excellencies, dear friends and colleagues, yesterday on 27th January, we commemorated the National and International Holocaust Remembrance Day in Moldova. Actually, every year, not only this one single day, but also the whole week around the day is fulfilled with a high number of events uniting people who cannot remain impartial to this European and worldwide tragedy. I'm grateful for this opportunity to participate in the symposium today. And especially we would like to appreciate efforts of the Jewish community of the Republic of Moldova investing inexhaustible energy in protecting the Jewish heritage and developing knowledge about the Holocaust. That was a turning point in our history to develop into us intolerance to anti-Semitism, hate speech, and discrimination. And today I would especially like to recall the importance of preserving the memory of this event, and which demonstrates the solidarity of nations worldwide. This is why the project Mapping and Protecting Jewish Cemeteries in Europe, that started with the pilot activity in 4 countries, but currently is followed up with already the second phase in even a bigger number of countries across Central and Eastern Europe, has earned special attention of the European Union. We also note with pleasure that the European Jewish Cemetery Initiative has been awarded yet another significant EU grant to continue this very important survey and to make another research on around 1,700 Jewish burial sites across a number of European countries. Me, myself, I studied the country report on Moldova with really big interest. Because my attention was caught immediately by a photo of a cemetery I visited last year, actually thanks to the pandemic, that facilitated internal tourism in Moldova. That was a whole hectare of picturesque land with full of amazing monuments on a beautiful river Nistru in Vadul Rashkov. That's why I think that this great report is interesting not only for Moldovans, but also for many international colleagues and population. Mapping such Jewish cemeteries is a very significant step in protecting European cultural heritage, which offers also educational opportunities. And we wish that in Moldova, remembrance, education, and research remains the essential instrument of preventing anti-Semitism today. Such reports could even be used in school curriculum with a big success. I wish further success to the project and also to all of us in protecting and properly remembering this great cultural heritage. And we also encourage all international partners to pay, to continue paying further attention to this important study. I wish success also to all participants of today's symposium. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear Olga. And I would like to please welcome our next speaker, Mr. Ion Stefanita from the Moldovan Agency for Inspection and Restoration of Monuments. Ion? Ion, we are having trouble hearing you. I think there might be a problem with your microphone. We can come back to you. Also, I can give you my WhatsApp number to call and then put you on speakerphone. Sorry. We'll come back to Ion Stefanita in a few minutes. He's having just some technical difficulties with his audio. So I apologize. And now moving on to our next speaker. I'd like to please welcome Rabbi Shimshon D. Isaacson, the Chief Rabbi of the Jewish Community of Moldova. Rabbi Isaacson, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'll speak in Russian. Я действительно хочу поблагодарить ESJF за поддержку в этом глобальном проекте, потому что еврейские кладбища в Молдове — это не только страницы истории прошлого, это наше тоже ожидание к будущему еврейской общины в Молдове, потому что зачастую история, она корректируется. И далеко не все сегодня жители Молдовы могут представить, что еще 50-60 лет назад Молдова была очень еврейским краем, поэтому
I apologize. I accidentally muted you. My apologies.
Да, и, к сожалению, если мы не сможем сохранить память о том, что когда-то Молдова была очень еврейским краем, то эта память просто исчезнет. Поэтому сохранение кладбища — это не только забота об ушедших, это также забота, необходимая евреям ныне живущим. Как уже сказал директор общины Юлия Шейнман, у нас есть очень важный объект наследия, еврейское кладбище в Кишиневе, на котором находится захоронение жертв Кишиневского погрома. И надгробные плиты этих жертв Кишиневского погрома трагическим образом, многие из них были сильно повреждены во время очистительных работ, которые велись на кладбище. Действительно, если возможно их восстановить, это было бы очень важно, поскольку это одна из тех частей наследия, которая должна быть должна быть сохранена. Я еще раз хочу поблагодарить ESJF за фантастическую работу и поддержку в столь важном проекте для нашей общины. Большое спасибо. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Isaacson. I would like to now welcome our next speaker, Mr. Robert Keane, who is Human Rights Officer in the Political Economic Section at the U.S. Embassy to Moldova. Mr. Keane, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's an honor to join you today for this excellent event dedicated to the protection and preservation of historic Jewish cemeteries in Moldova. Yesterday, the world observed International Holocaust Remembrance Day and paid tribute to the millions lost in the worst genocide in human history. Today, we contemplate how we can preserve the memory of generations of Jews who died in this country and how to ensure that future generations have spaces to come together for worship. Hello?
Go ahead, we can hear you now.
I'm sorry, excuse me, someone else was trying to call me. This year we commemorate the 76th anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz-Birkenau death camp, a place where the brutal Nazi regime killed more than 1 million Jews, Roma, Poles, and others in their campaign of death and destruction. We owe it to the millions lost to ensure that this tragedy is never forgotten and can never happen again. And part of that responsibility means ensuring that the Jewish communities of Europe can thrive in their own countries and carry on the traditions of their ancestors in their native lands. We must ensure that Moldova's Jewish heritage, people, religion, and culture are protected, and that they are not only part of Moldova's history, but its present and future as well. That is why this initiative by ESJF, undertaken with the generous support of our friends and partners from the European Union, is so important. With Moldova's Jewish community nearly destroyed by the Holocaust and the pogroms that preceded it, and stifled by the Soviet regime, many historic Jewish places have fallen into disrepair, either out of neglect or willful efforts to erase Moldova's Jewish history. By identifying, rehabilitating, and preserving Jewish cemeteries, ESJF is helping to ensure that Moldova's connection to its history can never be broken. I was very pleased to learn that this excellent initiative is building on the work done in 2010 by the U.S. Commission for the Preservation of America's Heritage Abroad, which was able to identify 37 separate Jewish cemeteries in the Republic of Moldova. 2 years ago, Commission Chairman Paul Packer visited Moldova to praise the government's efforts to renovate the Chișinău Jewish Cemetery and to encourage further action to preserve Moldova's Jewish heritage and to combat anti-Semitism. At the time, he reminded us that in Jewish tradition, respect for the dead, kavod hamet, is considered the purest form of generosity because one can expect nothing in return for their good deeds. Tragically, we need only look to the same cemetery to know that anti-Semitism is still alive in the world. This past October, vandals attacked and desecrated dozens of Jewish graves and monuments in a disgraceful act of anti-Semitism, which must be punished. The government must take all necessary steps to protect and preserve sacred historic sites. We must continue to fight against anti-Semitism, including with education and cultural preservation. As Ambassador Hogan said on Tuesday, to truly honor the victims of the Holocaust, we must ensure some measure of restorative justice for their families and communities. This includes the return of historic cemeteries, synagogues, and yeshivas to their rightful heirs. We're very hopeful that this project will be a first step in that direction. The United States stands ready to assist in all these efforts in any way that we can. I want to again commend the ESJF, the Federal Republic of Germany, the European Union, and the Jewish community of Moldova for all your efforts, and to reiterate America's commitment to ensuring that Moldova has a thriving Jewish community with strong ties to its past for generations to come. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Mr. Keane. I'd like to now welcome our next speaker, who actually was not listed on the agenda due to an error, but she is very beloved by ESJF. Dr. Irina Shikhova. She was a historian who was key in our research in Moldova, and she is the lead historian of Jewish Heritage Moldova. So please now welcome Dr. Irina Shikhova.
Thank you, Samantha. Can you give me opportunity to share my screen?
Certainly, just a moment. I think you should have the permission.
I think so. How it's done usually? No, I have no.
No.
I have no permission. So I will start. Meanwhile, so I'm here as Cemeteries and Jewish Heritage researcher working for the Institute of Cultural Heritage that for years used to be an institute inside the Academy of Sciences and now is under the Ministry of Culture, Education and Research. And I'm very proud to work to do this job together with ESJF, and we'll try to be very brief. I can't share my screen. It's a pity.
You can send me whatever you want to share and I can share it as an alternative.
I don't think you have it. Okay, I wanted to share just to show, to illustrate the thesis that the density of the Jewish cemeteries matches the density of the Jewish communities on the map of Bessarabia of Moldova. We've created ourselves from the records, from the census and so on. So we don't have the Jewish communities all listed as it was. There was a question if we are ready to close this job, and are we sure that we've listed all the Jewish cemeteries on the territory of Moldova? We are sure that we have not. We're absolutely sure that there are still cemeteries that are not discovered but by us or not visited yet. We've discovered recently a few more cemeteries already that are not listed in ESJF list yet. It's a never-ending story. It's a story that has to be continued and continued. But mostly we've done the largest bunch of the cemeteries. We've mapped them. We've described them. And we are ready to continue researching and mapping and cataloging and doing this job. Thank you. All together we'll manage.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shikhova. Our next speaker is Mr. David Goulet, who is Human Rights Program Manager at the OSCE Mission to Moldova. Mr. Goulet, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Samantha. And well done for getting everyone's names right. That's pretty amazing. No one gets my name right. So, dear esteemed colleagues, thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. Let me just see, turn this off. There we go. The work that the European Jewish Cemeteries Initiative has already done is remarkable, and the support that they've received and the work from the Jewish community of Moldova, with whom we're very closely in contact with, is also excellent. This is the kind of collaboration that we hope to see, and we hope to see strengthened in the future, together with our national counterparts. You know, I've had the privilege of traveling on both banks of the Dniester River for the past several years, and I can see what the real impact that this kind of project has. As we've mentioned today, some of the cemeteries have been destroyed or are unattended, but they still serve as points of a society's collective memory. So just a bit about the OSCE. Under our mandate, the OSCE mission to Moldova seeks to provide advice and expertise, as well as a framework for contribution on such part of a political settlement as effective observance of international obligations and commitments regarding human and minority rights. This is an important and often complex aspect of our work on the settlement process. We do not just examine present issues, but also the past and how to strengthen the future of the country. Therefore, we promote and engage in open and objective discussions on combating anti-Semitism and promoting Holocaust remembrance and education. Our approach acknowledges that society's ability to come to terms with painful periods of the past through an open discussion will contribute to building an inclusive and resilient society. On collective memory, I refer to Paul Connaughton's use of the term in his book, How Societies Remember. Collective memory, or what's sometimes called social memory, is a kind of memory derived from commemorative ceremonies, but also requires that we are personally involved and through our direct actions, which translates into long-term, almost automatic behavior. Cemeteries are not just monuments to the past. Cemeteries are sites of commemoration. We are personally committed and perform duties in the memories of our ancestors. And these actions, however, also maintain values today. They add to the memory of society today and what it understands and how it reacts. Thus, the mapping of cemeteries is an exercise to recall the past, but also to address related issues of the place of the Jewish community in the memory of society today. And this project is an important part of a broader effort to build a more inclusive society. The mission advocates not just for the restoration of cemeteries, but also for the establishment of a museum of history of the Moldovan Jews, as outlined in relevant public policy documents. This would help reflect the contribution of the Jewish population to the development of local culture, economy, and social life. Visiting the museum, engaging in activities and promoting events within the community will help to expand and broaden the collective memory of society. I'd like to encourage the Moldovan authorities to continue to work on solving the issue of the appropriate premises for the museum. The establishment of the museum is an important aspect for everyone. Among other things, it will help to address stereotypes and to educate people about the importance of embracing different cultures whose various contributions enrich the entire society. Harmful actions such as the recent desecration of cemeteries, the desecration of the Jewish cemetery in Chisinau hurts not only the Jewish community, but is also a harmful memory to the entire Moldovan society. The authorities have taken actions to harshest sanctions against perpetrators, but now Moldova must work to educate and engage people to expand the collective memory of society, to accept and reproduce appreciation and inclusion towards all. Thank you very much again for inviting me here today, and I echo the words of my colleagues before and think this is a wonderful job and project that you're doing, and I very much hope that it continues and is strengthened in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Goulet. And now we have our final speaker for today, Ms. Olga Sivak from the Itzik Mangar Jewish Library. Olga, are you here?
Me? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. As I am the last, but I hope not the least speaker at this conference, maybe my speech will be a kind of some conclusion of all the debates and discussions of this session. And I'd like to invite you for a very short, very short. I hope that I also can I share my, I'd like to share my screen.
You can try now.
Here we are. Okay, and I'd like to invite you for a very very, very short, brief tour around Jewish cemeteries of Moldova. Итак, мы сегодня с вами подвели итоги огромной работы, которая была проделана фондом по каталогизации и обеспечению охраны еврейских кладбищ Молдовы. Я хочу остановиться на очень важных моментах, которые мы видим как главные задачи, которые стоят перед нами в дальнейшей работе. Прежде всего, мы сейчас много говорили о том, что только одно единственное кладбище из всех, которые были названы сегодня, о которых говорилось, имеет более или менее внятный статус памятника истории и с недавних пор, с 2018 года, музея под открытым небом. Вот факт отсутствия надежной государственной защиты кладбищ, как памятников истории, как памятников архитектуры, если хотите, как образцов камнерезного искусства, не только де юре, но де факто, он делает эти кладбища, наши кладбища, уязвимыми не только с точки зрения их физического или естественных разрушительных процессов, но и с гуманитарной точки зрения, с точки зрения формирования отношения к кладбищу и вообще к еврейскому народу в целом со стороны всех жителей Молдовы. В процессе изучения и каталогизации кладбищ нам очень часто приходилось встречаться и с представителями местных органов власти, с простыми жителями сел и городов, с директорами, сотрудниками краеведческих музеев. Они все демонстрируют заинтересованность и желание сотрудничать, и в большинстве своем понимают значение еврейских кладбищ как минимум как туристических объектов, важных для развития туризма в регионе. Поэтому наличие внятного современного государственного закона об охране еврейских кладбищ, и не только, кстати, еврейских кладбищ, стало бы твердым шагом к охранению и заботе о них как о памятниках исторических. И с экономической точки зрения, когда кладбище может стать важной достопримечательностью того или иного региона, ну и, говоря современным языком, может быть и достаточно прибыльным бизнес-проектом для местной администрации. Как уже сказала Катя, я так в общем еще суммирую значение и интерес, чем могут быть еврейские кладбища интересны для, допустим, для туристов или просто для любознательных людей, и, естественно, для общин, для еврейской общины. Ну, во-первых, своей непохожестью на христианское кладбище. Это всегда, даже человек, который проходит просто мимо, он обязательно остановится, потому что еврейское кладбище не похоже ни на одно христианское кладбище. Во-вторых, часто приходится сталкиваться с тем, что просто любители некой мистики, какой-то таинственности, их привлекает непонятные буквы, изображения на мацевах, которые непосвященными воспринимаются как некие, ну, если хотите, даже масонские знаки. Часто в обсуждениях приходится сталкиваться с этим. Ну, в лучшем случае любая мацева привлечет внимание как образец декоративно-прикладного искусства, кстати, которое на территории Молдовы, камнерезное искусство, оно практически утрачено. И сейчас, вот если нам нужно будет восстанавливать памятники, я думаю, не просто будет найти мастера, который возьмется за эту работу. Для евреев, приезжающих со всех континентов без преувеличения из многих стран, посещение еврейского кладбища – это реальная возможность прикоснуться к истории своей семьи, найти свои корни, разыскать могилы своих далеких предков, представить себе, как они жили, это правда, какими ремеслами они владели, какими они были людьми. Вся эта информация заложена в еврейской надгробной стеле, в мацеве, в эпитафии, в изобразительной символике, даже в архитектонике букв ивритского алфавита. Для еврейской общины, как уже говорилось, и для местных краеведов, еврейское кладбище – это действительно подчас единственная возможность восстановить численность еврейского населения на местах и создать поименные списки евреев, живших в Молдове с 18 по 20 век. Для религиозных евреев это места паломничества действительно международного масштаба, потому что по меньшей мере 4 кладбища на территории нашей республики, это Рашков, Вадул-Рашков, Скулены и, конечно же, Кишинев, являются местами паломничества, потому что на них похоронены видные представители хасидских дворов, последователи которых рассеяны по всему миру. Ну, кроме того, в конце концов, еврейские кладбища – это действительно свидетели в камне всех исторических событий, по меньшей мере, конца XIX и начала XX века, жизни, еврейской жизни, не только еврейской, а вообще общественной жизни края. Ну, короче говоря, еврейское кладбище, пусть это шаблон какой-то, но это правда, является зеркалом еврейской жизни Молдовы. Каталогизация, восстановление оград, расчистка территорий – это очень важный шаг в деле охранения еврейских кладбищ, как памятников истории. Мне кажется, что следующим шагом обязательно должно стать составление мартирологов, составление списков. Ну, например, вот таких мы имеем прецеденты. Это Аргеевское кладбище, мартиролог Аргеевского кладбища, Дом вечности, мартиролог Кишиневского еврейского кладбища. Мы знаем о списках, вот таких опубликованных их немного. В основном эти списки, даже если они существуют, то они находятся в частных руках, и не всегда к ним легко можно подобраться. Но ввиду отсутствия многих архивных документов и потому как нам часто приходится обращаться к этим спискам, можно с уверенностью сказать, что это очень и очень важный источник информации. Ну и следующий важный момент, на который нужно обратить внимание, это как бы работа наша на будущее по этому проекту, это, безусловно, обеспечение непрерывности и последовательности процесса и в деле ухода, потому что мало один раз приехать на кладбище, расчистить его, через месяц, я вас уверяю, приезжаешь, мы тоже знаем, как это, оно опять заросло, и начинай все сначала. И в образовательно-просветительской работе. Вот организация лекций, открытых уроков, экспедиций, экскурсий – это очень важная составляющая в любой деятельности по воспитанию в духе толерантности. И все в комплексе. То есть все те мероприятия, которые уже проведены и которые, возможно, будут проведены, я надеюсь, они способствуют искоренению мифов, ложных представлений, предрассудков и ксенофобии. Большое спасибо всем за внимание. Если есть вопросы, то пожалуйста.
Спасибо вам большое. Thank you very much, Ms. Sivak. Before we close the conference, I would like to invite once more Mr. Phil Carmel, ESJF CEO, to say a few closing remarks. Phil?
Unmute, I'm sorry about that. Thank you, Samantha, and thank you to everybody who's taken part today. I want to thank in particular the Jewish community of Moldova and Julia Steinman in particular for helping us organize this important conference. I do want to say that a day after the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, that over 8,000 Jewish communities were wiped out in the Holocaust in Eastern and Central Europe. In many of those places, the Jewish cemetery is the one physical reminder that a Jewish community existed there. And it is also a reminder of why a Jewish community no longer exists there today. The preservation of Jewish cemeteries has an important religious message for all Jews, for the sanctity of those who came before all of us, and it also exists as a fundamental tool in the fight against Holocaust and revisionism. If you know that Jewish communities existed in all these towns and villages, and you have the physical proof that they existed in the cemetery, then that is a major tool against Holocaust denial. I want to say that because those communities are no longer there in most places, that we rely, all of us rely, on the support of local people and on the mobilization of local people to regard Jewish heritage in these places as being a fundamental part of everybody's local heritage. And that's why the mobilization of young people in these areas, of local authorities, of museums, and all the actors involved here today, of diplomatic missions, of international agencies, are all extremely vital. So thank you to everybody. Thank you very much for taking part in this conference. As many speakers have said, this is an ongoing mission. We will continue to fence in Moldova. We will continue to find more cemeteries in Moldova. Thank you very much. And most of all, please, in these difficult times, stay safe and be careful out there.
Thank you so much, Phil. And thank you once again to all of our speakers and audience members for joining us today. This has been a fascinating and inspiring program, and we look forward to running more like it for the rest of our project countries. My sincere gratitude to the Jewish community of Moldova for supporting this program and the work of ESJF. Once again, this program was recorded and it will be uploaded to the ESJF website in the coming weeks. If you have any questions for me or our speakers, feel free to send me an email to the address I've provided in the chat. We wish you all the best. Thank you once again. Stay safe and take care. Signing off.